Michael Davenport stood in his grand yet eerily silent office, gazing at the dim city skyline. Davenport Industries, once a towering giant in the business world, was now crumbling, disintegrating like a sandcastle swept away by relentless waves. The weight of impending failure pressed heavily on his chest. A pile of unpaid bills, resignation letters from his top employees, and rejection emails from every potential investor he had approached lay scattered across his mahogany desk. The empire he had built through relentless effort and sacrifice was collapsing before his very eyes. A sharp knock at the door jolted him from his thoughts. Turning around, he saw James, his chief financial officer, standing there with a grim expression. "It's bad, Michael," James muttered. "We're out of time." Michael exhaled slowly, the exhaustion evident in his every movement. He had tried everything: cutting costs, restructuring, even selling off some of his personal assets. Nothing had worked. He was at the end of the road. "Call an all-hands meeting," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I need to tell them it's over." As James left to gather the remaining employees, Michael sank into his chair, burying his face in his hands. How had it come to this? The door creaked open again, but it wasn't James. A timid voice broke the silence. "Mr. Davenport?" Michael looked up to see a young intern standing hesitantly in the doorway. Her name was Lily, quiet, observant, often overlooked in the chaotic office. "What is it, Lily?" he asked, his exhaustion palpable. She hesitated before stepping forward, clutching a small notebook. Her eyes held something different, not pity, but unwavering belief. Taking a deep breath, she spoke 3 words that sent Michael to his knees. "Remember why you started." His breath hitched as those words echoed in his mind. Remember why you started. Before he even realized it, he had dropped to his knees, his hands trembling as they gripped the edges of his desk. But the weight of those words was not crushing. It was awakening something buried deep within him. Lily stood frozen, unsure if she had overstepped. She had only been an intern for a few months, quietly observing the turmoil within the company. But she had seen something in Michael that others had overlooked. A man who once fought for something greater than profits and shareholders. Michael's throat tightened as he struggled to find his voice. "Why did you say that?" he whispered. Lily hesitated before answering. "Because I've been watching you, Mr. Davenport. You built something incredible, but somewhere along the way, you lost sight of why." A heavy silence stretched between them. For the first time in months, something pierced through the fog of hopelessness, a memory. 20 years ago, a young, ambitious Michael sat in his tiny apartment, surrounded by blueprints, business plans, and a second-hand laptop that barely functioned. His heart pounded with excitement. "This is it," he had whispered to himself. "This is how I change everything." Back then, he hadn't been thinking about millions of dollars or stock prices. His only goal was simple: to create something that mattered. His company had started with one idea: helping small businesses streamline their operations through technology. It had never been about greed. It had always been about impact. He had endured sleepless nights, countless rejections, and the crushing doubt that came with failure. But he had never given up. And now he was about to walk away. Michael clenched his fists and lifted his head, his weary eyes locking onto Lily. Taking a shaky breath, he said, "You?" His voice was unsteady. "You have no idea what you just did." Lily's eyes widened. "Did I say something wrong?" Michael let out a soft, almost disbelieving chuckle. "No," he murmured. "You said something right." The exhaustion that had weighed him down for so long suddenly felt a little lighter. The despair had not vanished, but something had shifted. A flicker of determination had ignited in the darkness. The all-hands meeting remained on schedule, but now, instead of delivering news of closure, Michael found himself ready for one last battle. Michael pushed himself off the floor, his heartbeat quickening, not from fear, but from a long-lost sense of purpose. Lily observed him carefully, uncertain about what was unfolding in his mind. Adjusting his tie and squaring his shoulders, he turned to her. "Thank you, Lily," he said, his voice firm and clear. "I think you just saved this company." Her eyes widened in surprise. "I did." Michael exhaled slowly. "I don't know how, but I'm not giving up, not yet." Reaching for his phone, he dialed James. The line connected. "Michael, we're ready in the conference room," James said, his tone bleak. "Are you on your way?" Michael glanced at Lily, then at the mess strewn across his desk. Overdue invoices, rejection letters, remnants of failed attempts. Without hesitation, he swept them into the trash. "I'll be there in 5 minutes," he replied. "But we're not closing down. We're fighting back." A long silence followed. Then James spoke hesitantly. "Michael, we don't have a plan." Michael allowed himself a small smile. "Then we're about to make one." The conference room was thick with tension. Employees sat in hushed silence, awaiting the inevitable. Quiet murmurs spread as many contemplated their next steps, already considering their exit strategies. Near the front, James flipped through financial reports, his expression one of resignation. Then the doors swung open. Michael entered, not as a defeated man, but as a leader with renewed fire in his eyes. He strode to the front, taking in the exhausted, disheartened faces before him, and inhaled deeply. "I know why you're all here," he began. "You expect me to say it's over, that Davenport Industries is finished." No one spoke, but their expressions confirmed it. They had all braced for the worst. Michael shook his head. "But that's not what's happening today." A murmur rippled through the room. James blinked in disbelief. Michael continued, his voice gaining momentum. "I won't sugarcoat this. We're in serious trouble. We're drowning in debt. Our investors have pulled out, and the world believes we've already lost. But do you know what I just remembered?" He paused, scanning the room. "I remembered why we started." His words hung in the air. Some employees exchanged looks, while others leaned forward, intrigued. Michael's voice softened, yet carried unwavering conviction. This company wasn't built to chase profits or impress investors. It was built on a belief in helping small businesses, in giving underdogs a fighting chance. Somewhere along the way, I lost sight of that, and that's on me. Silence followed. Then, unexpectedly, James spoke. "So what now?" Michael met his gaze, then turned to address the entire room. "Now," he said, "we do the impossible." After the meeting, Michael gathered a small team in his office. James, a few senior staff members, and Lily, who sat quietly in the corner, uncertain why she had been included. James rubbed his temples. "We've heard the speech, but let's be realistic. What's our actual plan?" Michael leaned forward, determination shining in his eyes. "We return to our roots. We stop chasing big investors and focus on the people who truly need us, small businesses." One of the executives frowned. "That's a great vision, Michael, but it doesn't fix our immediate problem. We need money now." Michael nodded. "Then we find it." James scoffed. "We've tried, Michael. No bank is willing to give us a loan." Michael turned to Lily. "What would you do?" Lily's eyes widened in surprise. Emmy hesitated, glancing around at the seasoned executives who undoubtedly had far more business experience than she did. But after a moment of deliberation, she took a steady breath and spoke. "What do we crowdfund?" The room fell silent. James raised an eyebrow. "You're suggesting we ask for donations?" Lily quickly shook her head. "No, not donations, pre-orders. If we can get small businesses to believe in our mission, they might be willing to pay for our product in advance. It won't fix everything, but it could buy us time." Michael studied her for a long moment before a slow smile spread across his face. "Brilliant," he murmured. Some executives looked doubtful, but Michael wasn't. For the first time in a long while, he saw a way forward. The battle wasn't over yet. The next morning, the office hummed with renewed energy, hope. Employees who had been preparing to pack up their desks now sat focused at their computers, typing with purpose. The marketing team brainstormed strategies. Developers worked late into the night refining the product, and James, despite his earlier skepticism, spent hours running financial projections to determine the exact amount they needed to stay afloat. At the center of it all was Michael. He was no longer the exhausted, defeated man who had been ready to walk away. He was a leader again. And beside him was Lily. Though still just an intern, Michael insisted she be present in every major meeting. She had reminded him of something crucial, something he had lost, and now he wanted her insight on everything. All right, James said, placing a document onto the table, if we can raise $500,000 in the next 2 weeks, we'll have enough to keep the lights on and fulfill early pre-orders. Michael nodded. Then that's our target. Lily hesitated before raising her hand. And how do we convince people to trust us again? Michael's expression softened. By telling them the truth. That afternoon, the company's small media team set up a simple camera in Michael's office. There were no elaborate scripts, no flashy graphics, just Michael speaking from the heart, staring into the camera. He took a deep breath and began. I won't lie to you. Our company is in trouble. We made mistakes. We lost sight of what truly mattered, and because of that, we're on the verge of shutting down. But I started this company with a purpose, to help small businesses, to make things easier for the dreamers, the risk-takers, the ones building something of their own. Somewhere along the way, I lost that vision, but today I remember. He leaned forward. We're not asking for charity. We're not asking for pity. We're asking for a chance. If you believe in what we're doing, if you still think our product can help, pre-order today. Help us keep this dream alive. He paused, then added with a small, sincere smile, and if you've ever felt lost, just remember 3 words. Remember why you started. The video was uploaded that night. The team didn't expect much, perhaps a few hundred views, some supportive comments. But then, something extraordinary happened. Within hours, the video spread like wildfire. Small business owners who had once been loyal customers shared it. Entrepreneurs inspired by Michael's journey left comments. Complete strangers, moved by his honesty, contributed. By midnight, they had raised $50,000. By the next morning, that number had surged to $200,000. And by the end of the first week, $700,000. They had done it. The company was saved. As the final numbers rolled in, Michael sat at his desk, staring at the screen. He had expected relief. He had expected excitement. But more than anything, he felt gratitude. A knock on the door made him look up. Lily peeked inside. Mr. Davenport? Michael grinned. Lily, get in here. She stepped in hesitantly. It worked. Michael stood, walked over to her, and, without warning, pulled her into a hug. You saved this company, he said. You saved me. Lily laughed nervously. I just reminded you. Michael pulled back and nodded. And sometimes that's all we need. Davenport Industries was no longer teetering on the edge of collapse. It was thriving. Investors who had once abandoned them now sought to return. Employees who had nearly quit were proud to be part of the team. And the customers, the very people they had almost forgotten, had proven to be their greatest supporters. As for Lily, she was no longer an intern. She had become the youngest executive in the company's history. And every time Michael faced a difficult decision, whenever the path seemed unclear, he would turn to her and ask, Lily, what would you do? Because she had given him something no investor, no financial advisor, no consultant ever could. She had given him back his why. And that changed everything.